Welcome to today's deep dive. We're so glad to have you with us today, pulling up a chair and just making time for this conversation.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Today, we are immersing ourselves in a truly fascinating piece of historical fiction. We are looking at excerpts from the novel Ashes by Newbery honor-winning author Kathryn Lasky.
It really is a remarkable piece of literature, and the mission for our deep dive today is to explore a phenomenon that feels incredibly relevant, no matter what era you study.
Right.
We are looking at how the slow, terrifying creep of extremism infiltrates the everyday lives of ordinary people.
Yeah.
We aren't just looking at the major historical dates or like the shifting of borders.
No, we are examining what happens to the fabric of a neighborhood.
Exactly, to the sanctuary of a classroom and to the minds of the people actually living through it.
And before we jump right into the source material, we just want to briefly state that this deep dive will explore some pretty heavy political themes, specifically the fall of the Weimar Republic and the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany.
Right, which is intense material.
It is. So we are looking at these themes strictly as they are presented in the historical context of the novel. Our goal is to impartially report on the book's events and themes without endorsing any political viewpoints. We simply want to convey the ideas contained in this incredibly moving original source material. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really grasp the atmosphere of this book, we have to look at the unique tension of Berlin in the spring of 1932.
Set the scene for us.
Well, for anyone who studies this period, you probably already know the macro-level history, the economic devastation from the Treaty of Versailles, the wobbly Weimar Republic, the societal fractures.
Right, the big picture stuff.
But the specific paradox of early 1932 is what makes the setting so volatile. In the presidential election that year, the 84-year-old incumbent, President Paul von Hindenburg,
Who a lot of people affectionately or maybe desperately called the old gentleman.
yes, exactly. The old gentleman actually defeated Adolf Hitler in a runoff.
Which on paper, that looks like a victory for stability.
It does. But the reality on the streets was completely different. The brown shirts, the SA, they were essentially running rampant.
Just total chaos.
Precisely. The government attempted to ban the SA in April of 1932 to cripple those extreme factions, but the ban was entirely ineffective.
Because they just couldn't enforce it.
Right. The state lacked the power or the will to enforce it, and as a result, the brown shirts grew bolder. They realized the institutional guardrails were essentially made of paper.
And that is the ticking clock in the background of this story. The official government says one thing, but the men in the cheap khaki shirts roaming the streets dictate another.
It is a terrifying macro-level reality.
And that reality is the backdrop for our micro-universe. Our protagonist is a 13-year-old girl named Gabriella Schramm, or Gabby.
Gabby, yeah.
And the author makes this brilliant choice by tying Gabby's origin directly to the cosmos. Gabby's story technically starts on the exact day she was born, May 29th, 1919.
During a total solar eclipse?
Yes. Her father, who is an esteemed astrophysicist, he wasn't even in the country for her birth. He was off the coast of West Africa, capturing the starlight on film during those scant minutes of totality.
It establishes such a profound foundation for her character. I mean, her middle name is even Lucia, derived from the Latin word for light, directly honoring that starlight her father was photographing.
He actually tells her, and I love this quote, he says, 92 elements and I'll bake you a universe. That's all it takes.
Wow.
Right. He raises her to believe that absolutely everything around them, butterflies, horses, you, me, and yes, even the political figures shouting on the radio, it is all just stardust forged in the hot core of some ancient star.
It is a beautifully unifying way to look at existence.
It really is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have this incredible, almost poetic contrast established right from the first page.
Also,
On one side, you have the elegant, mathematical, and ultimately neutral universe that Gabby's father studies. It is a universe governed by laws of physics filled with light and stardust and objective scientific truth. Right.
and on the other side, you have the incredibly ugly, chaotic, and dangerous earthly political reality brewing in 1932 Berlin. The entire narrative tension of the book relies on watching those two incompatible worlds collide.
And that collision doesn't start with a massive riot. It starts in the most relatable, mundane place imaginable, an 8th grade math class.
Yes.
Listen to how insidious this is. Gabby is sitting up math class with her teacher, Herr Dr. Berg. And he is described as impeccably polite, but he weaponizes that politeness.
Oh, absolutely.
Gabby's bored, so she is secretly reading Jack London's The Call of the Wild. just keeping it hidden inside her algebra textbook.
I think any of us who have ever tried to sneak a novel into a dull class can instantly relate to that moment of quiet rebellion.
For sure. But Dr. Berg catches her. And instead of simply confiscating the book or, sending her to the headmaster, he decides to make a philosophical spectacle out of her.
He brings her up to the board. Right. He forces Gabby to the blackboard to solve a quadratic equation in front of the entire class. And Gabby actually solves it correctly. She demonstrates that in this specific equation, x could equal 10 or x could equal 60.
Because it is a quadratic equation, there are two mathematical truths.
Exactly. Both answers are mathematically true, but based on the real-world parameters of the word problem, only the answer 10 makes logical sense.
And the author uses this specific mathematical concept brilliantly here. Berg pounces on that second answer. He asks the class why the second, technically truthful answer isn't used.
And he labels that second answer extra baggage.
Yes, extra baggage. And then he pivots to attack the literature Gabby was reading. He mocks the very concept of literature because it invites multiple interpretations and subjective truths.
It's so manipulative.
It is. He tells Gabby that in his classroom, and by extension, in his preferred version of society, there is only one correct answer. There is no room for the extra baggage of differing perspectives.
He tells her she is cluttering the classroom with her extra baggage and just takes the Jack London book away. I mean, think about how chilling that is if you put yourself in Gaby's shoes.
It is completely isolating.
If you've ever had a teacher or an authority figure use their platform to demean your interests or your way of thinking, you know exactly how exposed and violated she feels in that moment.
It is a perfect microcosm of the rising totalitarian mindset. Totalitarian ideologies fundamentally despise the extra baggage of intellectualism.
They just can't tolerate it.
No, they cannot tolerate free thought, debate, or the acknowledgement that the human experience might contain multiple valid perspectives. Berg isn't just teaching algebra, he is performing a psychological conditioning exercise on his students.
Preparing them for a regime that demands one singular, rigid truth.
Exactly.
And the psychological weight of this scene is amplified because this isn't even the first time he's done this. He previously confiscated her copy of Helen Keller's The Story of My Life.
Which is so symbolic.
It instantly brings to mind the haunting Heinrich Heine quote that Lasky places at the very front of the novel. Where they burn books, they will end by burning human beings.
Yeah.
Dr. Berg, quietly taking those books and placing them in his drawer, is the very first subtle spark of that historical fire in Gaby's personal life.
We also have to look at the thematic resonance of the specific books he targets. The Call of the Wild explores the brutal law of club and fang, the regression to a primitive state where brute physical force dictates survival.
Right.
That is a direct mirror to what the essay is currently doing to the streets of Berlin. And Helen Keller's autobiography is the story of a girl trapped in darkness who achieves liberation through education, empathy, and communication.
And Berg is confiscating those very concepts of empathy and warning, locking them away in his desk.
It is incredibly dark.
But despite these heavy, oppressive moments, the book does a phenomenal job of grounding us in the reality of being a 13-year-old girl. Gabby and her best friend, Rosa Ebers, they aren't sitting around constantly debating the Weimar Republic.
No, they're normal teenagers.
Right, they are obsessed with Hollywood glamour. They idolize the American actress Joan Crawford and spend their free time analyzing movies like Grand Hotel.
It provides a necessary levity. Rosa even develops this elaborate unified theory of fashion that she shares with Gabby. She insists that it's all on the shoulders.
I love that detail so much.
Mm-hmm.
Rosa genuinely believes that the secret to becoming a powerful, untouchable woman, like Greta Garbo or Joan Crawford, is having heavily tailored outfits with massive shoulder pads.
She thinks that architectural structure gives a woman an uncommon force in the world.
It is such a poignant, humorous look at teenage girls trying to invent their own armor to feel grown up and secure.
They're looking for ways to project power in a world where they have none. But the tragedy is that their innocent, imagined armor of shoulder pads is completely useless against the literal, uniformed armies gathering around them.
And that harsh reality shatters their afternoon when they take the tram to the Gloria Palace Theater. They're just hoping to sneak into a movie, maybe see some of that Hollywood glamour on the big screen.
Just a normal afternoon out.
But instead of a fun afternoon, they step off the tram into a sea of brown. The theater is being swarmed by a mob of SA officers. The brown shirts have gathered to intimidate the theatergoers because the venue is showing the film adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Erich Maria Remarque's novel and the subsequent film were profoundly anti-war. They depicted the horrific, gory, unglamorous realities of trench warfare in World War I.
Right. They show the actual truth of it.
And the rising extreme right absolutely despised this narrative because it contradicted their myth of glorious nationalistic militarism. So they utilized mob intimidation to suppress the art.
Gaby is so physically repulsed by them that she mutters, Schwein, swine, under her breath. She remembers her dad calling the essay the Scheissturm, the shitstorm.
That is a very apt description from her father.
Realizing the theater's completely compromised, the girls decide to stay on the tram and go to the zoo instead, because the zoo is their ultimate safe haven, a place of pure childhood innocence.
They have this lovely tradition there, right?
Yes. They touch the trunks of the stone elephants at the zoo entrance for good luck. They search the grounds for shed flamingo feathers. They spend time whispering to an elderly, half-blind lion in its cage.
But the crucial sociological insight here is that totalitarian regimes cannot allow safe havens to exist. They demand total societal compliance.
Nowhere is safe.
Exactly. The extremism doesn't just stay neatly contained in the Reichstag or the government buildings. It bleeds into the movie theaters, the cafes, and even the zoo. It co-ops public leisure spaces.
And the girls experience this firsthand. While they are lingering near the zoo, looking at a dress shop window and admiring the shoulder pads on the mannequins, a high-ranking SA officer spots them.
Yeah.
He is covered in ribbons and bars, smoking a dark little cigar. He is described as handsome, but his eyes look like two dead, malevolent bugs. He laughs and calls these two young 13-year-old girls pretty little vamps.
The sense of violation in that moment is palpable. He strips away their childhood innocence with a single phrase.
I want you to imagine that exact feeling for a moment. Think about walking through your own neighborhood, a place where you've played since you were a child.
A place you know perfectly.
Right, a place with your favorite local theater and the parks you know by heart. And suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. It feels hostile. It feels dirty. A stranger in a uniform looks at you not as a neighbor, but as prey.
It is terrifying.
Gaby feels a profound wave of nausea. She and Rosa grab each other's hands and just run.
It perfectly illustrates how political pollution corrupts daily life. It makes the simple act of looking at a dress in a shop window a dangerous, uncomfortable endeavor for young girls.
Gaby's coping mechanism for this trauma is fascinating, too. Inspired by the Helen Keller book she had read before it was confiscated, she decides to walk the rest of the way home with her eyes squeezed completely shut.
Wow, she actually navigates blind.
Yes, she runs her hand along the hedges, trying to navigate her neighborhood in the Bavarian Quarter by touch and smell alone. She smells the dampness of an approaching rainstorm, trying to overwrite the visual of that sea of brown uniforms.
Trying to erase the memory.
She even compares the lingering image of the SA to retinal fatigue, where a bright light gets burned into your vision even after you close your eyes.
She is attempting to literally blind herself to the political reality of Germany, seeking solace in a purely sensory, immediate world.
And while her eyes are still closed, she catches a very distinct scent. It isn't the acrid, cheap cigar of the SA officer. It is a different, familiar kind of pipe smoke. She opens her eyes and literal ashes fall right in front of her. She has bumped into her neighbor, Albert Einstein.
It is a matter of historical record that Einstein lived just down the street from the Schramm family on Haberlandstrasse. He was a prominent colleague of Gaby's father at the university.
And the dynamic between Gaby and Einstein is so charming and humanizing. He's just returned from a trip to Caltech in California. And Gaby asks him, "Did you see the stars?"
Which is their running inside joke.
Exactly. He's this world-famous theoretical physicist, but when this teenage girl asks about stars, he answers with Hollywood actors. He lists off constellations and blends them with celebrities.
Yeah.
He says, "Let me think. I saw Alfred's. I saw Sirius. I saw Charlie Chaplin. I saw Mary Pickford."
It is a wonderful moment that brings a historical giant down to earth, showing his warmth and humor.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Gaby asks if he saw Joan Crawford, and Einstein just shrugs, admitting she isn't really his cup of tea. Then the conversation takes a turn toward actual astrophysics.
He has a message for her father.
Yes, he asks Gaby to pass a message along to her father. He mentions that he met with Edwin Hubble in California, and they were discussing the Andromeda Galaxy.
And the author includes a beautiful detail here. Einstein refers to the Andromeda Galaxy by its mythological nickname, the Lady in Chains.
A nickname derived from Greek mythology where the Princess Andromeda was chained to a rock as a sacrifice to a sea monster. It is a subtle but heavy piece of foreshadowing.
Very heavy.
Einstein goes on to tell Gabby that Hubble confirmed his theory. The Andromeda Galaxy is moving away from them. This astronomical observation proves that the entire universe is expanding.
What's fascinating here is the internal psychological contrast playing out in Gabby's mind during this conversation.
Tell us about that.
Well, she obviously isn't going to correct Albert Einstein on astrophysics, but her internal monologue is screaming the exact opposite of what he is saying. Einstein is standing on the sidewalk providing empirical proof that the physical universe is expanding outward in all directions.
Getting larger.
Yes. Yet, Gabby feels with every fiber of her being that her own personal universe is rapidly contracting. It is suffocating her. Hitler has come from Austria to Germany. The brown shirts have migrated from the beer halls of Munich right to the front doors of her favorite movie theater in Berlin.
Her world is shrinking to the size of a cage.
Exactly.
The juxtaposition is brilliant. The physical cosmos is infinite, but her social and political cosmos is closing in on her. And that feeling of claustrophobia reaches a boiling point when she finally arrives home.
Back at the apartment building.
Right. Her apartment building at 14 Heibelenstrasse is described as a beautiful, butter-colored building with thick ivy creeping up the front. The ivy is shaped exactly like Peter Pan's shadow, caught mid-flight.
But any magic that imagery suggests is immediately undercut by the building superintendent, Herr Himmel.
Yes. His name translates to heaven, but Gabby and her sister fittingly refer to him as Mr. Hell.
Which is a great nickname.
It is. He sits in the basement meticulously tracking the comings and goings of every resident. He complains about curfews and acts as a localized surveillance state.
He embodies the idea that your neighbors are suddenly watching you, taking notes on your behavior.
Gabby manages to get past him and goes up to her family's apartment. And for a brief moment, it feels like a sanctuary again. The walls are painted a soothing sky blue. Her mother, a talented pianist, is having tea in the music parlor with her best friend, Baba.
Baba is a journalist, right?
Yes. Baba is a society reporter for a newspaper that Gabby's parents consider to be the last publication that hasn't devolved into a Nazi bullhorn. They are sitting there eating these lovely little pink frosted pastries called Schnecke that look like seashells, gossiping about high society.
They're desperately clinging to the illusion of normalcy. Baba is analyzing the political situation, insisting that President Hindenburg is just putty in the hands of the right-wing extremists.
She knows what is coming.
Right, she is warning that he will cave and officially lift the ban on the essay any day now. But Gabby's mother is in denial. She counters by saying Hindenburg won the election and the ban is currently in place, choosing to believe the system still functions.
And right in the middle of this cozy, civilized, pastel-colored tea party, the illusion shatters. The front door slams open, and it is Gabby's father, Papa.
And we have to remember his physical condition.
Yes, keep in mind his physical reality. He is a brilliant astrophysicist, but he's also a polio survivor.
Yeah.
His right arm is entirely paralyzed. He bursts into the apartment, practically collapsing against the doorframe, and he is cursing.
Which deeply shocks everyone in the room.
Absolutely. He says, I told you they would come back twice as strong as soon as they were banned.
The violence of the streets has literally breached the physical walls of their sanctuary.
Papa reveals that the brown shirts didn't just limit their intimidation to the movie theater that afternoon. They took a terrifying step further.
What do they do?
They broke into the University of Berlin, they stormed into his specific department, and violently disrupted a physics lecture being given by a visiting Swiss scientist, Max Goldmann.
The historical context of this disruption is vital to understand the depth of the tragedy. At this time, the scientific community in Germany was being heavily politicized.
Science itself is under attack.
Yes. The theories of Einstein and other Jewish scientists were being aggressively labeled by anti-Semitic factions as Jewish physics. The extremists were pushing for a purged, ideologically pure curriculum they called Aryan physics.
It's just absurd.
It is. The Nazi Party was deeply suspicious of the academic world because it represented the exact kind of intellectual extra baggage that Herr Dr. Berg was trying to eradicate in Gabby's math class.
So what does this all mean?
This raises an important question. What happens to a society when the ultimate sanctuary of the mind is violently dismantled?
Because for the Schramm family, the university was everything.
Yes, it was the pinnacle of civilization. It was the realm of logic, mathematics, peer review, and starlight. It was supposed to be untouchable. But this devastating final scene proves that brute force has absolutely no respect for logic or academic tenure.
The macropolitics have officially kicked down the front door of their safe, intellectual micro-universe.
You have Papa, a man whose mind can comprehend the origins of the universe, but who is physically disabled, facing down a mob that worships ruthless physical dominance and violence.
It is a horrible realization for him.
Intellect, science, and art are suddenly exposed as completely ineffective shields against a gang of thugs in khaki shirts. The Lady in Chains isn't just a distant galaxy anymore. It is a direct reflection of what is happening to their entire society.
It gives you absolute chills to picture it. To see a father who promised his daughter he could bake her a universe out of 92 elements, sitting on a piano bench in his own home, completely helpless and devastated by the realization that his universe is collapsing.
That is the profound horror that Kathryn Lasky captures so eloquently in these excerpts from Ashes.
History isn't just big events far away.
No, history isn't just a list of treaties, chancellors, and emergency decrees memorized from a textbook. History is the slow, creeping loss of your favorite movie theater.
Right.
It is your math teacher mocking your perspective and locking your novels in his desk. It is the smell of cigar smoke from a leering man in a uniform at the local zoo. It is a mob bursting into a quiet university lecture hall. It is the insidious normalization of the abnormal.
It really highlights how the unthinkable doesn't happen overnight. It becomes reality step by step, right in your own neighborhood, until the abnormal is the only reality left.
A very sobering thought.
We want to leave you with a final thought today, something for you to mull over long after this deep dive comes to a close. Think about the extra baggage in your own life. Consider the art you love, the books you hold dear, the diverse perspectives you entertain, and the complex ideas that don't have just one simple, rigid answer.
That is such an important reflection.
When a society begins to view that extra baggage as dangerous, who gets to decide what gets left behind?
An incredibly powerful question to carry with you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We appreciate you taking the time to explore this complex, moving source material with us. Take care of yourself and guard your extra baggage.